right, here we are. Hey, Kara. Yay. All right, we are super excited to be here on this Facebook Live with you. I'm Jenn Barley, alongside with
Karen Sullivan. Hello, 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 everybody.
Excellent. So we want to let you guys know that this is going to be a super fun Facebook Live, and this is on a follow-up to a post that we did in regards to what were some of the best Jenn and Karen pearls of wisdoms that you've heard throughout the years, and you guys had some really great ones. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about what it is, where it came from, and what it means when it comes to coaching, so that everyone's kind of in the same language. I do feel like I have a big sunlight on my hair, on my face. No?
Well, you do.
I do. So what we want people to do is to go ahead and type in comments as well. If you have follow-up questions or things that you want to know, we are definitely here to answer. And so we're just going to get things going, and I have them all prepared here to be able, where's my little list for my agenda? Huh. Oh, seriously? Okay, so I'm not sure exactly where that is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for that, and we're going to just start off. And it's a little pop-up box, and I had everybody in here to be able to, there we go, I found it. Okay, so here we go. We are going to start with being able to do an overview of one of Scott's favorites, which is the concept of keep your questions short and broad. So, Kara, why don't you kick us off with this one?
Hey, Jen, this is the Barney Rubble thing, right? So the short and the broad thing, it's about how do you keep your questions really short? Because sometimes, so many times, we hear the questions are so long. The questions tend to almost explain the questions as you're actually asking the questions. But what we prefer to do is we prefer your questions to be as short and concise as possible, and then they can cover a big range of places the client actually can go. So even something along the lines of even what's right, something about that, right? What's actually working? What are we really talking about? So the thing here is the shorter you get, the more the client gets to think about where they actually might want to go with that.
I love it, Kara, because sometimes what we do is we limit people's thinking, and we'll say, so when you interacted with your brother and the whole conversation about taking out the trash came up, and you noticed that he was pulling back from you, what was running through your head? People then have to go to a logical place to follow what is happening in that sequence. If you were to just say, so what was your experience? Or, what came up for you then? Even that is going to allow people to be able to go in any direction that they need. The more details you put in the question, the more you limit the potential answer from your clients. Okay, moving on. We have Susie who typed in she loves WAIT. Karen, what does WAIT stand for?
So WAIT, one of my favorites, and it's funny, you guys are going to see many of my acronyms come from the law enforcement world. So this comes from police investigations and an internal affairs training that I was actually at. And it's funny because the guy talked about we talk so much, and it equates to why am I talking? So if you can actually, in the beginning, Jen and I suggest even writing on the top of your notebooks where you're taking notes, WAIT, W-A-I-T, why am I talking? What's going to happen is going to help you shut up, because silence in coaching is one of your best friends, and silence in coaching is a skill that so many people don't use, and we want you to start to use it, because the thing is, not only if you're trying to lock up a bad guy, even if you're having a conversation with a coaching client, if you be quiet, there's a tendency for somebody else to want to fill that silence. You know what you're doing. You know why it is that you're doing what you're doing. But if you're quiet, your clients will fill that silence.
I love it. And also, if you think about it from internal affairs and investigations, is even with good negotiations, just shut up. people will fill that space. And if you look at, like, if you're to get a transcript of your coaching, so you could see like you and what the client is speaking, you should really literally be 25-75. 25% of you doing the talking, 75% of the client doing the talking. And what we do is we often will think we have to connect dots for clients. We have to share our own experience. We have to bring in our perspective, and we talk and talk and talk and talk. Sometimes, to be honest, people will even reflect or acknowledge or validate way too much that they lose the power of the question because they're over talking, when sometimes the best provocative way to, when you're coaching, is that short, broad question right at the right moment. So.
You know what else, Jen, just really quick, what you mentioned, transcripts, and I think that that's another way that can help you with the whole short and broad thing too. Because if you get a transcript of a coaching session that you've done, take a look at the questions. Take a look and see, okay, are they this long? Are they saying way too much? Or are they short, sweet, and to the point? And it's going to allow you to be a better coach that way too.
All right, the next one that came in from Jennifer or Jen or Jenny, however you want to look at it, from new mother to be with her family of 5. Well, 3 kids, her and her husband. Jenny Greer is who this is, and she wrote in that she loves NATO, and NATO is another one that has Karen's name written all over it.
All right, here, ladies and gentlemen, NATO is not attached to outcomes. And again, whole police world and the investigation skills, right? You can't, in that world, get attached to what you think might have happened. You know, you're going to, I mean, obviously you're going to use your investigative skills, but sometimes people surprise you, just like your clients will surprise you. And you can't think that you need to know where they should go. You can't think you need to know what's the best way for them to go. And you can't be attached to their successes. And you can't actually measure your success based on your client's successes. So let's say, you know, I'll use an old thing that I used to use a lot of times. You know, somebody's going for, you're coaching a client and they're going for a big promotion at work, and you're helping them with confidence, and you're helping them with their executive presence, and you're helping them with whatever, and they don't get that promotion. It's not because you suck as a coach. It's something else actually has happened. But the thing is, you can't get insanely attached. So if you're able to be present, if you're able to be more in the moment, it's going to allow you to not get so attached to the outcomes. A really cool thing here is that if you think about this, if the goal is if the experience is the actual goal, you're always going to hit your goal. And I say that again, because if the goal is the experience, you're always going to hit your goal, because you're always going to be in that experience, and you're not going to be like, ooh, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this?
I love it. So let me throw it back to our Facebook people that are listening to us. Of those, short and broad, making your question short and broad, wait, why am I talking, and NATO, not attached to outcomes, what's the one, if you worked on it, it would make the biggest difference in your coaching? Go ahead and type that in. We have short and broad, we have wait, and we have NATO. Which of those 3, if you focused on it, concentrated on it, would make the biggest difference in your coaching? Go ahead and type that in. I know we're on a slight delay here because it's Facebook Live, but we'd love to hear from a few of you of those 3. What would make a big difference? All right, so we have first one coming in, and they say wait. We have somebody else who is a big fan of NATO, and another person who says short and broad. So right now we have 1 for each of them. Anybody else want to go ahead and pull that in? That'd be great. I love it. So, right? So I keep questions short and broad. I need to STF you. Shut the frick up.
I'm right there with you. Love that. Absolutely love that.
That's fantastic. Good. And we got another one for short and broad. So let's continue on, Kara, because we were doing this fast and furious style because different people already know certain things. So this is good. But I do want to give out one more shout for NATO. All right, Kara, here we go. We heard this from a few of you, including Sarah, who was the first one to bring it up in our thread. And she said, plus others, the TTBTT, T squared BT squared. It's really known as the thing behind the thing. So this is a Jenn and Karenism, right? This is one that the two of us have brought together. Probably Karen came up with the wording around it, would be my guess. Because she's an acronym kind of person and a catchphrase kind of person. But the thing behind the thing is, what does our client really want help with that they don't even know that they want help with, right? So all of our clients come to us with one thing, right? So I want to do this, I want to do that, this is my goal, here's where I'm stuck, here's what's going on. What we have found with coaching is that people really have something beneath what they come to the session for.
You know what, Jen, too, in addition to that, it's funny, we have our own Kickstart Your Edge model. And on the outside of our model is all the things that people come to us with. They want leadership assistance. They want decision-making assistance. They want accountability. They want all these different things which they come to us with. But we know as coaches, what we're really doing is we're getting to the meat of what's going on. So the outside things are the things they actually say they want, but the inside thing is about their values. The inside thing is about their purpose. The inside things are about who they really are and how they're showing up. But the cool part about it is getting to what's behind those outside things. So if I was a better leader, what would I get? Or what would it say about me if I'm a better leader? So not just ticking off little check boxes and making to-do lists, it's getting down to the real sustainability with going to the thing behind the thing.
I love it. So we have different ways and techniques of being able to do that, different things to be able to listen for on how to get to the thing behind the thing. But often it's about, think about it in the way is, who is the person in relationship to the challenge that they bring? What does the challenge really, truly represent? Because that is the thing behind the thing. Good? Good. All right. Next one is the ever popular, the oh so repeated, the number one concept that when Karen and I go in and do leadership and corporate trainings across the globe, the number one thing they remember without doubt is MSU. Many people know this one as well. And I have to say that I'm very excited because we actually just got this week the trademark from the U.S. Trademark, registered trademark around MSU, because this is something that we have used for years and years and years. Karen brought it to the party. Karen, why don't you tell us where it came from? Then we'll and what it stands for, and then we'll go from there.
So great thing here, Jen, with MSU, again, cop world. And the fun part about this is cops are absolutely fabulous with fiction. And again, it came from a cop training, and the one of the people that we're having a conversation, I was having a conversation with, we were talking about how cops just make shit up. And I had said something about them having master's degrees from MSU. And those master's degrees have them making shit up all day long. Sometimes Jen prefers stuff for making stuff up, depending on the audience that we have. But the thing here with MSU is we make shit up and then we believe what it is that we just made up. And then we get freaked out about the story that we made up. And it's just like, it's just made up. You just made it up. So the big thing with MSU is really, how do we help people stop making things up? Because it's about, how do we separate the fact from the fiction? It's how do we really help them focus on what's really going on? Because we all have those master's degrees from MSU. So we need to just basically turn in that degree and stop making shit up.
I love it. I love it. Somebody put, that's amazing. Well done. So a key thing here is that the MSU concept is, we do it all the time ourselves. We put our meaning on what people meant, what they didn't really say, but we saw it in their facial expression. how their tone was that they were writing the email. When somebody doesn't return our phone call, what's really happening with it? And we make up all these stories, and they're not normally stories of I'm amazing and fabulous and people love me. They are usually like they're mad, they're upset, I tick them off, what's going on, they're a jerk, whatever the case is. So when we MSU, it's that then we are limiting our perspective of what really truly is going on. And that is the most amazing coaching opportunity ever, is to be able to separate the fact from the fiction.
And I think, and Jen, just really quick, and if you can do it in 30 seconds, I think you should tell them the email story, because that's a great example. And it's a quick example.
It is. So one day I got this email and I just got wound for frickin' sound. I was pissed. I was irritated. I'm like, oh my God, they're so condescending. And I can't believe that they would say this. And, who do they think they are? They're just doing this and they're doing it for A, B, and C. I said, hey, Kara, will you read this email and tell me your take on this? What are you noticing? So she goes over, she reads the email, and she's like, you need to be there at 5. And literally that was the conversation, right? So I had this whole big story of how I was convinced that it was all going down. And the truth of the matter is, to somebody with no energy behind the relationship and what was happening, read right through the truth was, I needed to be there at 5. So we use that example a lot. Okay. The next one, this is not necessarily a coaching thing. This is just a fun thing. This is from Noelle. I met Noelle in New Jersey, and one of my favorite things to say is the skinny and the scoop. Well, the skinny and the scoop is. And so I like that she shouted that out. It doesn't really necessarily have to do with coaching, but we did learn it. We learned, truthfully, that I said it a lot because I didn't realize I said it a lot until everybody pointed it out and then bought me a really cute set of note cards that said the skinny and the scoop on them. But it's just a sort of a fun way on here's the inside way to do it. What I will say is that Karen and I are wonderful about giving the skinny and the scoop. We like to deconstruct coaching. We like to go behind the scenes. We like to explain our thought process on how things happen. So I think we live this as a philosophy and an approach to how we show up when we're working with other coaches. Can I do that? Okay. So, all right, send us a comment. What are you guys thinking? What resonates with you? What is something you've been MSUing, or what's a thing behind the thing that you thought was one thing but turned out to be another thing? Those are the only ones. Or if you have any skinny in the scoop on anything, let us know that too. Type it in, interact, make it fun. All right, Sullivan, while they're doing that, because we're on a slight delay, we're now going to, this came in from Karen Elkins, stop going to the hardware store for milk is one of her favorite Jenn and Karen sayings, and this is something that the both of us have been saying for a long time. But Karen, why don't you go ahead and share how this applies to coaching?
So what this is about, guys and gals, this is about expectations. And what happens is so many times that we set ourselves up and we get disappointed. We want people to show up some way and they don't show up that way. And the story that I talk about is you actually, like, you go to the hardware store and you approach the gentleman at the counter and you're like, hey, I want some milk. And he goes, hey, listen, I help you out with a saw, I'll help you out with some nails, some hammers, whatever. He goes, I don't have any milk. And you're like, bum, like, seriously, dude? You don't have any milk? And he's just like, no, you got to go to 7-Eleven. You got to go to, the farm, go buy a cow, whatever. And the thing here is we get disappointed, right? So we're showing up to something and they don't have it and we get disappointed. And what happens then is you even go back the next day and you go, hey, buddy, I want to buy some milk. He's like, what's up with that? You were here yesterday. I got nothing. You got to go to 7-Eleven, buy the cow, whatever I told you to do yesterday. I could give you anything that you need to, build a shed. And what it is you don't want the things to build a shed. You want something else. You want milk. But how many times in your life or your clients' lives are they going to somebody and they get set up for disappointment every single time? Even if they're going to their significant other for support around their coaching business and the significant other isn't really supportive. How can you make sure that you help your client get what it is that they actually want so they're not continually disappointed? So this, again, all about expectations and not setting ourselves up to be standing in front of the hardware store and go, yo, where do you have milk? Unless you're probably in Tennessee someplace where apparently they might have milk at hardware store.
Or Vermont, I've heard.
It could be.
Yeah. All right. So love it. Comment coming in. Love the thing behind the thing. It gets to the meat of the matter, which is why we do the things that we do, and couldn't agree more. And do not worry. Tuna aisle coming up. Okay. I'm all wound up today, Sullivan.
That's because you get to be on camera, Jen.
Is that what it is?
Uh-huh.
All right. I'm only going to assume this is coming from the cop world, but let's see. We got Alan brought in that he loves the saying Band-Aids on bullet holes.
And you know what's funny about this, Jen? This actually isn't about the cop world, but it's very easy to tie anything in for me to put cop words around anything. But one of the things here is that I found that there's so many times that people are looking for a quick fix. And they're looking for something that's going to help them feel better in the moment. And sometimes that's okay. But what happens here, if you get in the habit of helping your clients rationalize, if you help your clients just like, oh, okay, great. Like, let's just put that on a shelf and forget about it. What happens is we keep putting Band-Aids on something that's a whole heck of a lot deeper. So what we need to do is we need to get underneath, and we need to, well, obviously, you know, bullet holes come from guns, but we need to figure out what's that thing that's really going on that caused that, whatever it was that actually happened. So if we don't get to the real fear, or if we don't get to the, again, truthfully, if we don't get to the thing behind the thing, a lot of times what happens is you're just going to rationalize. You're just going to say, oh, okay, well, great. Let's make lemonade out of lemons and all that kind of stuff. But it's not going to really help because you still got the bullet hole, and some damage can happen from the bullet hole.
A way to think about this is that oftentimes if we only coach a short-term coping strategy to deal with something, that wound will never heal. And I'm using wound from the bullet hole perspective, not from therapeutic wounds. I need to say that. What?
Because we don't do that.
No, we don't do that. So, for example, a short-term strategy is, what's another way to look at it? So in the moment, oh, okay, so I just now found a silver lining. But unless the real perspective that's underneath that doesn't change or have a new integrated, embodied way of thinking, then it's never really, then we're always going to need coping mechanisms or short-term strategies to be able to deal with stuff. The moment that we can change our perspective of how we see something truly at the cellular level, just even about like 2 degrees, that's when the perspective shift happens. That's why we coach. What has you blocked, stuck? Is it a belief? Is it a thought? Is it a perception? Is it, years of ways of seeing the world? But what worldview needs to shift in order for us to get what it is that we really want? And anytime we do a reframe, we do a strategy that doesn't change the belief, but talks us into feeling better about it, it's not going to do good for the long term. Okay, here we go, Kara, ready? This is I have to tell you, I haven't thought about this one in a long time either, because I used to talk about it a lot more, but we haven't. This came from Bridget, our beautiful friend, Bridget, right across the bridge in Tampa, Florida. Do you want me to hold your hand or kick your ass? This has Sullivan written all over it, and so go, girl.
So this one, Jen, it's actually about knowing your clients, right? And knowing your clients, and some clients are going to need a little bit more hand-holding, and some clients are going to need a little bit more ass-kicking. And what I like to do is I like to ask people, so in this situation or whatever, what is it that you really need from me in the moment? Is it the ass-kicking? Is it the hand-holding? And sometimes it actually is holding your hand while kicking your ass. And this is all about stretching your clients to help them do what it is that you know that they can really do. I can be a total no nonsense in your face kind of person, but you're also going to get a whole lot of support. So it's understanding what it is that the person needs. And also with this one, Jen, sometimes it's just about trusting your gut and knowing when you need to kick some ass.
Love it. All right. Be sure to type in what has been a takeaway in the last little segment that we've had here before we move on, because I'd love to get this to be interactive. Obviously, we have the Skinny and the Scoop, going to the hardware store for milk, Band-Aids on bullet holes, or do you want me to hold your hand or kick your ass? If any of those jumped out for you, type in which and the reason why. We'd love to be able to see that. Okay, while they're typing away, I'm going to go to the next one, and this is from Penelope. Penelope says one of her favorites is, I have to, I want to, I get to. And I'll just sort of start this one off a little bit. This is truly the evolution of coaching, right? When we go into, I have to do this, and I don't want to do this, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, and I have to. The have to is a drain on our approach, how we're feeling about things. When we can shift to a have to a want to, we get better success, more sustainability, more buy-in. When we get to the place of I get to, that's where the magic of life actually happens. It's at a higher level than even wanting to. It's the fact that I get to do this. I get to, whatever, fill in the blank. When our clients are at that particular place, it's pretty amazing to be in that place of excitement, wonderment, and gratitude. So, Karen, you want to do a little bit more on this?
And also, Jen, I think, too, it's about figuring out what's the perspective that needs to shift for your clients to go from the I have to the I want to the I get to. And I'll just use an example really quick about running, right? It's like, oh, shit, I have to go run 4 miles today. And, being able to sit here, and sometimes it is, oh shit, I have to go run 4 miles today. But the thing is like, okay, cool. What's the thing that's going to get me to say, okay, great, long-term goal, running a half marathon. All right, I want to go run today because it's actually going to help me with that big thing long-term. And then it's just sitting there and actually sitting here and getting a little bit more reflective, I think, a lot of times for me, what they get to. It's, you know what, I get to go run today because there's a lot of people that can't. So this is something that I get to do, and I'm really grateful that I can.
Love it. We got one comment in of saying that they love the hand holding and the kicking ass. Fantastic. Good.
Thanks for playing, Cynthia.
Say it again, Karen?
I said, thanks for playing, Cynthia.
Can you see who's commenting?
I split my screen a little bit.
Okay. If you feel like you're getting drag on it, though, from your voice, that could be dragging. Okay. All right. Okay. Coming up next, we have from Janice. I'm just going to do the universal sign of what this one is, because you will often see when Karen and I are doing Facebook Lives, we're doing webinars, our coaching intensives, right towards the end. I guess it's a little bit different. This is a wrap it up sign that ties with land the plane. Karen, you're up.
And that's it, right? Land the plane is when there's way too much talking going on, and it's get to the freaking point, right? What is it that I really need to know? Because I'm hearing way too much. When you're on a plane, you're just circling the airport and circling the airport and circling the airport. And you're just like, well, this sucker, please just land. Like, I want to get on the ground and I want to just go. So this coaching, this is one of my favorite coaching skills that we came up with, this is about how to help your clients get to, what is it that I need to know right here? Like I feel like we're circling. If you're going to land this plane, what's at the bottom of this? And help them figure out what that really is. So this is the wrap it up, and that's land the plane. And often at the end of our calls, a lot of times with Jen, I'm like, all right, boy, let's wrap it up and land the plane.
Love it. All right, you know what we're going to do right now? We're going to talk a little bit about the tuna aisle. So Sarah Bailey is the one who brought this up on the thread. And I have to be honest, I hadn't thought about the tuna aisle in a long time, but I used to tell the tuna aisle story all the time. So I'm going to tell the story, and then I'm going to tell you the, in my opinion, more funny story about where it came from. So there is, it's sort of like a skill, almost like landing the plane. It's also it's called the skill of intruding. It could be interrupting the client for the good of the client. But what happens is there are certain times that people will give us tons of unnecessary information when we're coaching that is taking us away from getting to the thing behind the thing, getting to the real questions that are being asked. And so it's like when people will do things like this, they'll say, you know, I'm really upset about an interaction I had at the checkout lane at the grocery store, and I'm trying to figure out why I reacted the way that I did. So you sit there and say, great. So you, instead of asking a really powerful question, you may say, tell me more about that. So, right, which is not that's not a question. Tell me more is not a question. And two, you will normally get story. But let's say somebody answers and they say, well, you know, so I was going to the shopping, I was going to the grocery store, and I wasn't really going to my standard grocery store because I had to stop by the bank and I had to do a deposit before I got to the grocery store. And I decided to park really far away from the front door because I'm trying to get more steps, and really that was going to help me. So I get in the store and I'm pushing one of those shopping carts, and it has the wobbly wheel, and I'm there to go get some tuna. So I go down the tuna aisle and I'm looking at all the tuna. Do you know how many kinds of tuna they have? They have tuna in oil. They have tuna in water. They have the chicken of the sea, which I'm very confused about. You as the coach will be hearing all these details, and you'll be like, get me out of the freaking tuna aisle and get me to the checkout lane. So the way to do that is to be able to come in and say, so, okay, I need to stop you here. We're down in the weeds of the tuna. Get me to the checkout lane where you said you had a reaction. So it's getting people out of the details of their story that have nothing to do with either finding the thing behind the thing or finding out what is really the problem to begin with. So that's the tuna aisle story, right? So here's the funny thing about this. So I got the link from Sarah, and it brought back lots of fun memories from Atlanta, Georgia, and all that. But then I'm like, where did my tuna aisle story come from? So here it is, because I've pieced it all together, because I've been telling that story forever. So I once went to a concert, and they had an opening act, and the opening act was a band called The Uninvited. This is years and years and years ago when I lived out in California. And they were a pretty good opening act, and I always I love live music in general. So I bought like 3 of the CDs, and I took them home. And one of the songs is called Too High for the Supermarket. And it's all about a guy who smokes pot, and he goes into the supermarket and he's like, oh my God, look at all the stuff that they have. And I'm so hungry, and I'm going to make a tuna fish sandwich. And he's just like stoned at the store, and he starts listing out all the different kinds of tuna they have. And it's actually a pretty good song. So Too High for the Supermarket was the content of just being like lost in details, and I pulled in all the different kinds of tuna that were referenced in that song. And so it's funny because then I found the video this week and I watched The Uninvited, but is that not hilarious, Karen?
I think that's great. So you bring a little different background and perspective than I do.
That's right, exactly. That's not from the cop days, but more from the apparently being at the supermarket. Okay, so I just thought that would be fun.
I love it.
Yeah, I know. And that was fun because it's fun sometimes when we think about these stories and connections that we have, and then we sort of lose touch of them along the way. So there you have it. All right, next one I'm going to bring in is from Kim with the helicopter view. So why don't I do this one, Kara, because you're up on the next one.
Yeah.
All right, so helicopter view is the concept of when we are in partnership with our client, we need to coach above the situations. It's almost like thinking about getting in a helicopter and rising up above it so that you get to see the full 360-degree view of what's going on. If we stay on the ground with our client, we're going to get trapped in the weeds. We're going to get lost in the story. We're going to get attached to outcome, and we may even start going, if you think about if somebody's in New York City and they're trying to get from point A to point B, we may start leading them with, oh, I know where we go. We take a left here and we go right here. When you're in the helicopter, what you want to do is to be able to rise above the details of the story, because it's not about the story. The story doesn't even matter. They're using the story to illustrate what perspective is stuck. So get in the helicopter, rise above to listen for the perspective, the challenge, the obstacle, the emotion that's really happening. And the only way to do that is to be able to get a 360-degree top-level view of what's going on. All right, coming in from Larnett. Goya.
Oh, love this one. This is get off your ass. And it's funny, Jen and I did a class a while back, and we had this thing that we called the Goya Challenge. And people had, in the beginning of the training that we were doing, people had to pick a time that, you know, what's the date of the program that they were going to put together was. So the Goya Challenge became, if they didn't have it done, they had to like send checks to people that they didn't like, or checks to political groups that they hated. They had to send checks to like an ex-spouse, all this kind of weird, fun, crazy shit. But what this basically does is we call it the Goya Challenge, because you got to get off your ass and do something. Nothing is going to happen if you just sit there and want it to happen, but you got to get off your ass and do it.
You know, when we coach what Karen and I refer to as TFAR, thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. And we coach the thoughts and the feelings, and we pull together it all with action. And people do have to get off their ass and do something different. So with the new mindset, with the new perspective, with trying to feel a certain way, with whatever it is, it's really about the action. Too often people will coach action way too early in the coaching. However, it is still an important part of the coaching.
Totally.
Yeah. All right. Next one comes from Jim. Jim says, how you do anything is how you do everything. And this is a concept that's been around forever, right? But the reality that is that we know with our clients that most likely people are not isolated in the way they show up in the world. They're going to show up, whether it's in a relationship, at work, with their children, in their communities, around weight loss, like all of those things. People are pretty consistent from a pattern, a behavior, a thought process perspective. So the how you do anything is how you do everything is realizing once you coach somebody about a certain area of their life, it's most likely showing up in another area as well. Now, a common mistake that a lot of coaches may do is do this. Okay, client, you have problem A, B, and C, and we haven't figured out really what the perspective is, but you just shared this problem. They will immediately go to where else does this show up in your life, which to me is a little bit too soon, right? Because then all of a sudden they're gonna talk about, let's say it's about with their relationship and it's at work and it's at church, right? Now you have details of 3 things swirling around. The story helps ground an example of what's happening. And sometimes we need this story, not to question about the story, but the story to ground the concepts. The moment you start bringing in multiple stories, it gets really confusing. Our recommendation is, with the how you do anything is how you do everything, is to coach the perspective using the one concrete example, get to the perspective shift, and then say, and where else does this show up in your life? Because then they can apply how does your new perspective help in that situation? And then all of a sudden they have a solution or a new way of seeing or a new worldview that can be translatable. If you bring it in too early, then all of a sudden your client starts to feel overwhelmed, and you as a coach no longer have an anchor to be able to ground the information to.
You know, Jen, it's funny with what you just said, we actually just got off a call about consistency, and people are consistent. And the thing here is your consistency working for you, or is your consistency working against you or your clients, right? Or, you know, are your clients, or are you the person who's always a few minutes late to work? right? Most likely you're probably a few minutes late for all other engagements, as well. So it's that time thing, do you sit here and you're the person who finds it difficult to say no when, your mom asks you something? So what are the same qualities for you that actually show up at work or school or wherever it is that happens? Do you start projects and you're boom, 100% full on commitment, and then it's just like, yeah, lose focus. How does that show up in all the other areas of your life? So basically, this is all about you. It's about your attitude. It's about the choices that you make. It's about the voices in your head, and it's really just how is it that you're showing up, because you're probably pretty consistent across the board.
Love it. All right, we only have a few more to go. We got Rebecca with CRS and GSD. It's an acronym. It's Karen.
Well, this one too, the CRS cannot take any credit for that, but that is, can't remember shit. And it was funny, I think even Rebecca had said that she couldn't remember shit to get shit done, or she couldn't remember that to the GSD. But the GSD, again, this is about get shit done. This is about get stuff done. This is about action. This is about how do you sit here and say, boom, what's the actions that I actually need to take to make things happen? It's funny, myself and two other police chiefs, female police chiefs back in New Jersey, we had shirts that we were like the GSD team. So it was about all of us, how do we get things done? What's important now? And how do we really make things happen? And I think that the only way you're going to see results is to get shit done. Jen and I do this thing with a group that we have going through our Get Real Corporate Coach Training and Leadership Program now. We have GSD days where we take people for 4 hours or whatever it is, and we're like, okay, this is a GSD day. So for 4 hours, we do hourly check-ins, and it's just like, what's the shit that you're going to bang out and get done in the next 50 minutes? And we would have 10-minute, let's get pumped up, let's get fired up. Most of the time, I'll start them with some kind of fun, pumping up things, and it's very funny. I usually go a little bit more military, straightforward, and then Jen will read a poem. But it's about how do we set people up to get the things done that they really want to get done for that time period.
Love it. All right, so this is one that also is, I don't know if it's a coaching terminology, but something that we use a lot, especially when we talk about leadership. And the concept is that people come in with a problem and leave with a project, right? So this is sort of Karen's philosophy and approach to problems or complaints, or how to really be a leader when somebody shows up with problems.
And what this really is, Jen, about leadership. And what the cool thing with this is that I used to use this back in the cop world. People would come into my office and they would say, hey, Captain or Chief, can you, help me with X, Y, and Z? And it's not that they didn't want to help them, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to empower them to come up with things on their own. So they would come in with a problem. And let's just say, hey, people are complaining about speeders. Okay, great. Give me 3 different ideas that you might be able to come up with to figure out how we can make this work. And then I'd send them off. And the cool thing is that people get really creative when you can empower them, that they're going to feel like they're valued, and when they're going to feel like they matter. And so when these people will come back, they would come back with, their ideas and their thoughts, and their things like 9 out of 10 times I wouldn't have even thought of. So they're coming in with an issue that they want me to fix. They're walking out with a project. But the cool thing is then there's ownership on that project. Then they come back, and then we start to brainstorm and get really, really creative. So the big part about this is that you can empower people to really make things happen. And then the cool backside of this also is the people that I like to call the crybabies. They don't come to you anymore because they know that it's getting thrown back on them. So it kind of gets the people that bitch and complain to go away.
Love it. All right, so I'm going to just plant the seed right now for you guys to think of any questions or comments that you have, to go ahead and type them in. We have 2 more that we're going to go through, but we can also take some comments from the field, or the comments from Facebook Live to be able to throw in here. And if you're catching this on the replay as well, you can still add comments, and then we always come back and look. So the one that I want to do now was sent in as a reminder from Elizabeth, and that's the concept of pain pushes until vision pulls, right? So this is a concept where most people want to get out of their current situation because it's painful. But there's at some point that it happens where the pain will push you, right? And then you might get complacent, or it may not be that bad, or the pain's kind of gone away, or your experience with it is different, and you get almost to a complacent kind of place where the pain isn't so big. So you're like, let's say you're trying to lose weight, you lose 20 pounds, you're like, my pants fit again. It's not that bad. I know I have 15 to go, but I'm not miserable like I was. I'll have that donut. So instead, it's how do you then have the vision pull you forward because the pain may not be there anymore. So when we look at this concept, pain is a motivator, pleasure or visioning is a motivator as well. So when does your client need other? And a great way when they're stuck in the middle is to ask them, so do you want to have more? What's it going to take you to move? Is it having more pain or creating that compelling vision? So that's what that concept kind of represents and comes to. And I love it because it reminds me of what the motivators are in life. And then also helping our clients to see what it is and how they're sometimes can alleviate their pain through their goals, or sometimes they have to pull in on the vision. All right. The next one that we have is from Jen Lindsay. The saying, congratulations, it sounds like you have exactly what you don't want. So Kara, why don't you start with this?
So the fun part of this one is that a lot of times what happens is our client's biggest fear are the things that they already have. So let's just say that you're working with a client regarding, getting into a relationship, and their biggest fear is that they're going to be alone. It's like, oh my God, I need to find a relationship because I'm terrified of being alone. It's just like, hello, McFly, you are alone, right? You're already alone. So the thing that you're terrified of the most is what you actually have and what it is that you don't want. So helping people realize that they already have their biggest fear in a lot of circumstances helps them to understand that it's not going to kill them. It's just going to help them to move forward. So recognizing it, having the awareness, because remember, that's what we do. As coaches, we help people become more aware of something. So it's about helping them create the awareness and figuring out then what's the perspective that needs to shift to get them to actually change.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, some concrete examples of this would be like somebody who says, well, I'm a perfectionist. So if I don't do it perfect, right, then then what's the point kind of thing. But then they're totally not doing anything at all, which is really far from perfect. So their fear of being imperfect is there. Or I don't know if you mentioned this, Kara, because I was manning the stuff is, or when people say, oh, I really don't want to be alone. You did. Okay, good. So that's a great example. So this shows up all the time. We even have somebody who says, love this one on congrats, it sounds, ouch. But the key thing is our job as a coach to be able to highlight and be the mirrors to reflect back what's going on. So when people say they don't want something, but that's exactly what they have because they're unwilling to do anything different, that's very, very important to be able to do. I love it. It says, somebody says, it takes clients straight to the point and hits them between the eyes, which is always what we love to do. Right, Karen?
Yes.
All right. So keep any comments coming in. The other thing is that these nuggets that Karen and I have come or we used or they're part of our philosophy, or, we use them, have come through years and years of training and coaching. So I've been a coach since 2007 and I've taught coaching since 2008. In a very consistent fashion, right? Different vehicles, programs, venues. but it's been something that has been on my radar. And one of my amazing abilities, I think, is to be able to deconstruct a coaching situation, to be able to understand it, what's there, what are philosophies that go with it, what are different directions and such. So that's where a lot of these things come from for me. Karen, you've been coaching since how long?
2010.
And you've been doing different types of coach training and teaching since
2011, but back in the whole cop world, I mean, I'm going to date myself here, but I think like 1989 is when I actually started doing training.
Love it. Love it. So we're extremely passionate about this. We do want to let you guys know that we do have a coaching intensive program that's coming up, which is October 5th through the 19th, and it goes for 6 weeks. I had no idea that this particular thing scrolled. That is fascinating. Let's see. Here it comes again. Look at it. Anyway, the coaching intensive is a 6-week program where there's limited to 10 coaches. We do deconstructing of coaching conversations. We give feedback on the coaching, and it's very a great way to understand the ins and the outs of good coaching, different possibilities on where to go. If you are interested in learning more about that, you're going to have to send me an email, and I didn't want the scrolling thing, so I'll put it right here. And you can do that at Jenn@kickstartyouredge.com. And I can tell you all about the program and what that is. We'd love to have you. We do have 1 seat sold already. So there's only 9 seats left, but it's a great way to be able to get feedback on your coaching. So if anybody has taken the class before and want to write any comments about that on this thread, that'd be awesome. Anything else you want to add there, Kara?
That class always sells out every single time. It sells out, and the cool part about this is that you get to get inside mine and Jen's head a little bit, and the fun part about that is the way that she's going to approach a situation is completely different than the way that I'm going to approach a situation. Sometimes they're similar, but the cool part about it is you actually get to see that there's no right way, there's no wrong way. And you get to figure out what do you want your way to be, and we help you figure out what it is that you could get better at. Like, what are you really, really good at that you want to get better at, and what are you a little bit shaky on that you actually want to get better at? And so we really, really focus on the individual kind of work that we do. So that's why it's such a small group.
I love it. And then we have brilliant. I loved it. So very helpful. Somebody else says it's such a great class. I highly recommend it. Yeah, this is our most repeated class ever. We have people who have taken it 6 to 12 times. So it's just fun. It's different every time. So cool. All right, Kara, what would be your favorite? If you had just one favorite, I'm totally putting you on the spot. Of all the things we believe and we teach and we know, what would be it?
I think, Jen, that MSU is a game changer. Even so much so we were at a corporation, a couple months back, and I'm in the bathroom washing my hands, and a woman that we had done a training with like months before that just yells into the bathroom. She sees me. She's like, "Oh my God, MSU changed my life, and it changed my marriage. Thank you." So I think MSU has such a big impact, and MSU is a game changer if you can wrap your head around it.
Love it. And I'm going to say, of all of it, my favorite thing for the geek in me is the thing behind the thing, right? When you really understand how to get to that, when you really understand what to listen for in order to quickly identify what's going on, that's the game changer. And I love to deconstruct it. I love to see it. So a lot of the scenarios we put in this Facebook group, there is a thing behind the thing. And it's interesting to see what questions stay on top of the surface and what questions are below the surface. And below the surface isn't necessarily about feeling. It is about perspective or where the struggle actually is. So I would say that's mine. All right, on that particular note, what does that mean, Kara?
Wrap it up and land the plane, Barley.
All right, we are wrapping it up, landing the plane. Thank you guys so much for being here. We love our Facebook group. Thanks for always being a part of it. Email us if you need anything. And on that note, this was super fun, and we will talk to you soon.
And even Facebook messages if you'd like, if it's easier.
Whatever works. All right, Sullivan and out. Bye.